Perfect.
Bye, Stacy.
Hi, Stacy. Okay, great. So yeah, we can get started with the May 14th business sustainability updates with Michelle Kohler. What do you got for us,
We're going
Michelle?
formal. So thank you again, my COVID clutch group. We're having fun. The updates, some of them you may have already heard, but for the recording purposes, and I'm sure there's going to be some questions out of this as well. So we're going to start at the top with the SBA, and I'm just going to kind of go down the line. So in regards to the EIDL, there has been movement with clients and people moving through hearing back, being communicated with from the SBA in regards to you're in process, it is now going to underwriting, here's what we need, so forth and so on. What I would say to those who have not heard is have them call. Have them call the 800 number, and I'll give it to you again, because they are answering, and in some instances, more than not now, they are able to pinpoint where their application is as long as they have their application number. If the person who answers says, I don't have that information, have them ask for a tier 2 SBA person. Because we contracted out to outside customer service, so sometimes they don't have the ability to see anything. So you ask for a tier 2 and it'll switch you back to SBA personnel. The phone number is 1-800-659-2955. Okay, so that's the EIDL. Next, we'll go to the PPE. So there is still money for the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. So if anybody has not already applied for it, please do. Go to your bank, and if they are maxed at their funding for PPP, there are other options for you to use to get that PPP money. And either contact the town, you can go to our website, or me, which is fine.
Just a comment on that, through chamber members, I have heard of success using the fintechs to access the PPP, like you had suggested last week.
Yes.
So, and specifically through PayPal, I had
Perfect.
heard that people had success with that.
Perfect. Thank you. That just kind of gives a testimony to what I was saying this morning, because PayPal has been a really great fintech lender for a lot of our clients, which was a complete surprise, and quick, not like, they had to wait, and it was very quick. So one more thing on the PPP is the state is looking at, make sure I'm talking about the needs. Oh, that's PPE. Never mind. I have PPE and PPE too close to one another here. So looking forward, another EIDL is rumors, and we're going to leave it as rumors, but I think we can say they are looking at a third round. The Democrats have put into action on their side and have approved it. It will now go to the Republicans, and we'll see how all that pans out. Obviously, to go back and forth. The other rumored part is that they are looking at the timeline on the PPP, meaning it was given when you are funded, when the money is put into your account, you have 8 weeks. They are looking at that being a little more fluid, and maybe extending that to 16, might be 12. We don't know, but at least we know that the conversation is there. What happens with it, don't know, but that's a good thing, because some people haven't been funded yet, which makes this whole timeline blown out of the water anyway. And another piece that people have been asking about, once they get their PPP, they can go back retroactive to February 15th, which is the date that they're expected to have, right, the same amount of employees on June 30th as they did on February 15th, but they can use back to February 15th all that payroll. So there are you can see where now if they extend it, there's just some really fluid pieces that they're trying to put together. So just so you know that can be used back to February 15th.
May I ask a question about that?
Sure.
You just said that you think it's going to be extended to 16 weeks. And you also said there's more money possibly coming. So does that mean you can apply a second time?
No.
Okay.
No.
So we've got our 8 weeks, but if we don't use it, we can go to 10 weeks or 16
You know,
weeks.
again, it's a rumor.
Okay.
It's a rumor. Whatever, when you got your funding, you were at 8 weeks. That still applies until they change that. So these are just rumors that, again, that they are talking about it. It is not put in stone. What is in stone is the 8 weeks from when you got funded.
Okey-doke.
So
We'll do
again,
it.
I don't like to start rumors, but if they are going to go for a third round and there's more PPP, someone doesn't get funded until May 15th, you know, it's only 6 weeks until June 30th. So they're looking at all of the options here.
Shelley, I have a couple questions for you on that too. Have you heard anything, or can you speak to sort of a timeline of when we might hear more information about that, about the third round of funding? You know, it is tentative or hypothetical right now, but
yeah, no, I can't, because I'm not in depth enough to know when things go between the Senate and Congress and when they're voting and when they're not. I don't have that timeline. But I just know that it's in discussion.
sure.
So, and what that third round looks like, who knows? It could be third round just for a particular industry. It could be, you know, again, specific, like they came out with the idle being opened and they only opened it for agriculture, you know, otherwise nobody else could get in. So I don't know. I can't really speak to that. Only the rumors.
Sure. Yeah, wait and see.
You know,
and, yeah. And
Right.
my second question on that was just, could you reiterate the resources that you would give to a business in terms of monitoring and assessing their payroll expenses in order to get prepared for the PPP if they haven't applied already?
So
whether that was documents that they could access through SBDC or
gotcha. Okay, so a couple of things. So to start off, when you get the PPP, you want, and this is just by virtually being able to track it, put it in a different account. That's the first part. Second part is really the concern over what's going to be forgiven and how do I use it so that it is all forgiven, and the time frame and you know, the collapsing, as Donna was saying, a lot of this, you know, we're talking about separately, but it all kind of collapses together at some point, and it will. We just don't know how or when. So that piece, we are working on a forgivable calculator that the SBDC will be able to help everybody who has received the PPP flow it out and say, you've used this much in payroll, you've used this much in X, Y, and Z, and this is how much you received. Here's the calculator. And we're getting that information from SBA so that we know out of the 10,000 that you received, 6,000 is forgivable because you got a $3,000 advance, which is deducted off of there. So there's these components, again, that are separate, but now we're going to come together. This is what that calculator will tell them. Like, you could possibly have 8,000 out of the 10 forgiven if you used it right. The other 2 is a 2-year loan at 1%.
That's going to be incredibly helpful.
as long as we can make sure that we have the right calculations from the SBA, and until that's flushed out and we have all the bugs out, we don't want to put it out there. So, so yes, that's a great question. Great question.
Absolutely.
And Shelley, could you clarify on one thing that you just said? I should know this, I don't. You said once you get the PPP can go back retroactively to February 15th. Is that for payroll computation?
It can be payroll and it can be rent or utilities.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be used the 75% or 25. Some it's going to be a loan because they've had to use it or they did use it all for, you know, retro rent or something. So,
okay.
But yeah, so because that was the point that they picked where people started to kind of either laying people off or the decline. So they wanted to make sure that everybody knew they could use that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any other questions in regards to the PPP or the EIDL? No. Okay.
With regards to the EIDL, it's anyone that had previously applied is still their applications are being processed at this time when
Correct.
the additional funding had come out. I'm sure.
Correct.
There's absolutely.
Yeah. So I would like to kind of move into the conversation of those that are potentially can reopen, which is the conversation that is happening for those 5 industries: offices, museums and zoos, hair salons, you have restaurants, outdoor dining, and then retail, malls and retail. So they have those guidelines and they're on the state website under the COVID piece. Those are stated guidelines, but they are actually the rules, meaning what they have put down and what these businesses have to do is not a question if they want to or not. This is how you have to do business moving forward until we say differently. And self-governing, but you also have customers who can govern you, because there will be a hotline and a voluntary line where people can call and say, this establishment, they're not wearing masks, they're not doing X, Y, and Z. So there's another element that's being put upon the business owner to do what's right and what is expected of them in the guidelines or the rules. So be aware of that. Again, on the state website, and that's where I would take all the information. They're printable PDFs, so they can print them out and they can give them to their employees. Part of that will be training as well, so that the employees know this is how we have to do business. The guidelines, the rules. So another piece that is coming down is the Connecticut Task Force is creating a booklet, a guideline or a guide that will entail all of these pieces and parts in one area. So people can go to it. We can put it on our website. They know what to expect. There's no reason that they shouldn't. So that will be, it's called Reopening Connecticut, and it's the task force. Coming out next week, I guess. And again, this is just the first 5 industries that they have put a stake in. You can do this. The rest of the industries, I don't know if they'll be in this guide. I would imagine they would be, but then the pace of them opening is dependent on how COVID symptoms, the levers, or the symptoms or the reports going down. How is that looking in the healthcare industry? So looking at that, there was a question, Adana, and I want to make sure everybody understands this. There is a self-certification that is voluntary, that they are still flushing out, but it is going to be an identifier for a lot of customers. If you self-certify and you go through that certification process, you have done everything that is needed in order to, one, make your employees safe, your customers safe, and everybody who comes into or buys from your establishment. So while that is voluntarily, it's an option right now, and the guidelines aren't quite there, it will be, I think, a critical piece for businesses to have and make that part of their messaging and make that part of their visible stamp on the door. We are COVID safe. This is what we do. So that is one of the bigger pieces, I think, that with those preparing to open next week, really need to be cautious about. They need to make sure that they have done what is expected of them to keep them safe, customers and their employees. And again, this will be future messaging, and consumer confidence is going to be really the key to any type of movement into our economy. And it's just going to take some time.
And Shelley, are you saying that self-certification is available now?
No, they're flushing that out.
Perfect.
Right. But
Thanks.
It had been brought up because it was a conversation, and someone asked about it. And so I went to my task force, which is my state director, and he said, that is on the absolute, that's in the conversation, but it just hasn't been flushed out. That was something that they said needs to happen, but it's not necessarily a priority right yet because they're trying to get these other guidelines out.
Sure.
So one could say it's kind of like a good housekeeping seal of approval, or
That's perfect.
yeah, that's real old school, or a Better Business Bureau, star or something.
Yes, absolutely. Because you've met certain criteria, you've taken certain actions, and this is the logo, the emblem, the crown, the seal that states that. So if I'm walking by as a consumer and I see that this retail shop has that, I now am assured and I'm confident that these business owners have taken the right steps. Others, I don't know, they might have a mask on, but I don't know that they know those other pieces.
Right.
So I think it's going to be a, it is voluntary, right? And it's going to be a self-certification, but I think it's going to play a huge piece in people being comfortable going into establishments moving forward. So that's what I have as far as updates. And the opening, I'm going to leave it with, we at the SBDC will help any client who really wants to take a look at their finances to even if, should they open? Or can they open? Should they open? And what does that look like when I only have $100 days? What it is that I need to do? What do I pivot? So, we are at that point in the conversation. We know that they can open, but should they? And just because they can doesn't mean they should. So even with this money coming in, is it enough? And the timing is going to play a huge part for a lot of these businesses. So, send them to our website, get them in touch with me. That's ctsbdc.com.
And Shelley, can you reiterate the process for a business that wants to link up with a CTSBDC COVID advisor? You had mentioned in a previous meeting about that.
Absolutely. So when you go to our website, you will see at the top bar, there's a yellow box, and it says COVID Business Advising. And you register as a client. It takes you 5 minutes, and then you are linked with an advisor who will then be one-on-one with you, whatever it is your needs. If in fact, there's a referral and you want to send them to me, that's fine. Do that and I can walk them through. If it's non-COVID, someone is seeking an opportunity, there is another place. You can register the same place, but there will be a box that you will want to uncheck because it's not COVID related. So it walks you through it. It's very simple. And you'll usually hear back from somebody within 2 days, because we have hired 6 new advisors for COVID businesses specifically.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think that's really reassuring as well for businesses to know that if they have specific questions about COVID and their business, they're able to streamline the process to go and talk to you or talk to a COVID advisor.
And we have a lot of webinars that they can, on our website, trainings that they can go back and revisit that have, previous. It doesn't hurt to kind of get some information. And there's some online training. DECD, the state, has some online courses that are free for all business owners or for the unemployed, that you can hone your skills. And there might be something that they want to, social media, marketing, and it is on the DECD website. I just found that out today.
Oh, that's great. I've heard a number of businesses that are looking into improving their social media presence, whether they're opening services again or whether they're extending services or providing a new service during COVID, and just lots of interest in just making sure that they're aware to the public and they're getting that message out there.
Exactly. And I think that is where a lot of this is going. Companies are going to have to pivot. You can have the best product in the world, and it's if you can't pivot so the consumer can see it from where they are, which is at our home, then that's going to be an issue. So pivoting, and that takes money, right? If they were not completely online or had a website because they were all, just consumers coming in, a retail shop, now they really have to rethink how they do business. And that can be daunting when you're doing it on your own. One, you know the way you do business and had done business and it was successful, but now you don't know what this right-hand turn looks like, or this left-hand turn. So seeking advising can absolutely help you walk through that process. And it might be that you don't continue, or it might be that this is better than it was before. So I always think every business owner should have some type of mentor or advisor, because you can't do it alone. It's just impossible. Most of us have tried. And it doesn't, it's fine, but it's not like wildly successful. When things are wildly successful, there's a team and there's outside looking in with all kinds of different perspectives. So,
Shelley, do you, I've been reading how the Connecticut Restaurant Association is pushing back for an earlier opening for the inside dining. And I don't know, I was surprised that there were a variety of restaurants in the downtown that did not want to take advantage of that. They just felt too uncertain about what the cost factor would be for staffing and what the return would be for customers using that space this early on. So are you hearing anything more about the early reopening for interior dining?
Yes. And I have clients have the same pushback. And, restaurant owners, if they've made it this far, so if any business was on the edge, they're probably teetering or they've already fallen off. Mm-hmm. The restaurants, they know their cost of goods inside and out. So they know what they can provide and how much cheese they can put. They are very savvy. Yep. And they also know they cannot open their establishment and only have it half full and then close their doors and have to completely disinfect, completely, like the other pieces and parts that they have to put into just being to have people inside their establishment is cost prohibitive. They would never make that back at half capacity. And that would be on an everyday basis. And they know that the weather comes into play. Mm-hmm. So I don't blame them for a little bit of pushback. Not saying that they're pushing back to open full because they're just as frightened about all of this as anybody, but they also know that they can't survive opening their establishment and only having it half capacity. They can do just as much takeout and delivery.
Yep.
So these are the conversations and things that are going to start emerging when we start looking at this, right? And it's one of those fluid restaurants. Again, they can open. Do they want to, or should they? That is up to them. That is absolutely up to the business owner. And if they're not comfortable doing it, I suggest, and I always tell my clients, then don't, because if you're not confident, your consumers are not going to be confident. And that's the last thing you want. So you got to kind of stand by your own morals and values in this.
And Shelley, you had also mentioned that SBDC has the reopening resources that fit into the metaphorical binder. You called it a binder in the last.
So yeah, doing the business resiliency, a 4-part series. The first 2 parts, we took kind of a 30,000 foot view as to what it looks like during any kind of disaster. And those are some pretty heavy parts, which require a lot of research, communication, information, writing things down, your resources. So I said, get a binder and put it in there. The part 3 is the plan. Now, given any other just normal day, pre-COVID, we would really be creating that plan and planning it out how things would look. Well, we don't have to do that because we're in it. So we're given how things are going to be looking. So we really shifted to that reopening. So that's going to be part of their binder of their resiliency, which is also kind of a preparedness, a disaster preparedness. And once things settle down, I think in July or August, we can come back to that and really put more things in that we didn't know now that we do know. Well, we will know then. And that'll complete some of the binder, and we can also fill in some gaps. So when I say the binder, it's really, this is your disaster preparedness folder, anything that happens, which is also your resiliency and sustainability. This is a continuity, continuity. This is how we are running our business. And if anything happens, here's who to contact, here's the emergency exit, here's everything is in one place, and everybody knows, which, we as an state doesn't have that. We don't have that. Everybody is looking at this now because we are in the influx, right? Of, well, we don't know. So now we're going, like those little things are flying around. What is it that we do? Oh, this one lands. So it's really going to be beneficial because we know that there are going to be other disasters, whether it's tornado or flood or something, and people will be prepared. They will have that in hand. Things will go much smoother. They'll be able to pivot quicker. They'll know what they can and can't do. This is the thought process we're going through now, and it was needed. I never like to, have our backs pushed up against a wall to do something that we have to do, but this is definitely a process worth moving through and documenting it.
Once we get through this first flush here and get to reopening and move through this summer, I'm assuming that somebody on the federal level, state level is going to be in some little back room looking at what happens when this comes back in the fall and starting to be prepared for how that might work out.
Well, so those who are doing this resiliency program right now are going to have that. They're going to know, they're going to have it all pinned down. If it comes back, then I know what I need to do. I need to go back to X, Y, and Z. I need to cut back. At least it will be in their mind process.
Right.
And I think that's why revisiting this again in July, when people aren't quite content, but yes, okay, I need to make sure that the next time this comes around, I have a handle on it. I know what I need to do. And I mean, it's a given. It's going to resurge. Just at what level, and
Right.
you know, how is it? You know, it might be a resurgence that is containable. It's a pandemic, and you know, we can only go by history. And the flu, right?
Every
What is
year.
it, 2 or 3 years, right? So, and until everybody has it, and it's not all at once, it just has to. We have to move through it, and that's just the surface of it, right? We just have to move through it. Everything below that is chaos and morass, and we just need to take it one step at a time. And sometimes we can't. You know, one step forward, 10 steps back, and it's a true test of people's ability and tenacity and, you know, survival. For some, it is absolute survival. And I myself, with businesses, treat it as such, because this is their livelihood. Some have built this for years only to be shut down by a pandemic. And then maybe they wanted to retire, or they had a buyer. I had 3 mergers and acquisitions that went out the window. You know, they're 67 years old, and now what, right? So it's a very humbling spot to be in. But you know, it's not like one person is in a better place than another. We are all in this together, because if my neighbor is hungry, then you know what, it's on me, and as a decent human being. Some say this is really, it's bringing us back to what we need to be doing as human beings, and it's true. We just need to be helping one another, and that's really the key. That's what it comes down to. And the town doing their part. I'm just doing what my skill sets allow me to do. And you know, Donna, thank you for being on all these. You are a great advocate. Emma, I just love you. You're great.
We're all a good team.
Well, and I think that's it, right? And that it takes a team. There's no one person. I'm a great filter of information. You know, you guys are great at getting that out. So I thank you for that and the partnerships.
Just as using that as a segue, I know that I've talked to the group on this meeting about the event that we have coming up tomorrow, but for anyone that might be watching this recording afterwards, the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce is holding a virtual conference tomorrow morning on business recovery. And so, reiterating topics that we've covered in this meeting today, talking with the Town of Manchester, Town of Bolton, Connecticut Restaurant Association, COVID-19 certified cleaning companies, signage companies, just a whole slew of panelists that might be able to give insight on information that you need to reopen your business. Good. So we are having this virtual conference tomorrow morning, May 15th at 9 a.m., but it will be recorded. So in the coming weeks, anyone that's interested can go to manchesterchamber.com and look for a copy of that recording, along with a 12-page guide with all links, PDFs, walkthroughs, so much information that you might want to look over to help you reopen your business. So I just wanted to share that, and Shelley will be a panelist on that conference as well.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to it.
Are there any questions in this chat box?
We had just to say, just had some interest in the self-certification process, and just saying that, you know, whether a business reaches out to SBDC or the chamber or the town or TANA, also with the town, but specifically to TANA, we will all have information on that as soon as we're able.
Yes. And a plug for the town of Manchester. They have a navigators, kind of a navigators force. So they are being filtered information from me and other resources to help small businesses that, you know, maybe reach out to them and they just have some questions and they can be answered, or guide them to a resource, or sent to me, however. But it's a very, I think, coming up on a very critical time when all hands on deck are going to be needed for information for these people. I'm probably not going to be able to get to them, you know, quick enough. So any type of help in navigating and getting resources out will be absolutely critical and appreciated. I know everybody's doing that, but if I can get information to you guys and you sort it out or send it out, that would be awesome.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you, Emma, regarding tomorrow's event. Do you say that's specific for our locale, or would we have a small business friends, small music business in the lower part of the state. Would they benefit from this meeting tomorrow? And would I be able to ask you to involve them, or is it too late?
Absolutely. So we're still accepting registrations for the event tomorrow, and I can say that any business would be able to get value out of this conference. We will have First Selectman from the town of Bolton and Gary Anderson with Economic Planning and Development as panelists for that specific town-specific information, but we'll have so much more. Connecticut Retail Merchants Association, and like I said, Connecticut Restaurant Association. So whatever industry they're in, wherever they are in Connecticut, they'll get value out of this conference.
Thank you.
And I'll make sure to follow up with you that via email.
All right, I will contact them after this meeting and see if they would like to participate. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So,
And Emma,
yeah.
registration for the May 15th webinar you're doing, it's just as simple as clicking the registration button, which just goes through to April's email. And then you respond with the link, correct?
Absolutely. So if you'd like to share this information at this point, they can just email emma@manchesterchamber.com
Okay.
to RSVP, and I will send them the link.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Great.
Anybody else have any last questions for our meeting today? Yeah, it's always nice to have a recap of what's happening and just to be able to touch base efficiently. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Get a
Well,
good night's sleep
you.
tonight, girls.
I know
You're gonna
being
need it.
busy.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Wonderful.
Right.
Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a great meeting, and we hope to see you all tomorrow at the conference with the Chamber. Okay.
Deal.
Yep.
Bye now.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.